Great. This is Erica Wilhite speaking. And before we get started, our Oklahoma Arts Council Accessibility in the Arts webinar, I want to do just a bit of housekeeping. If you need to use closed captioning during this session, you can enable this feature by clicking the word "more" on the toolbox, which may be at the bottom of your screen. Also, so the content today that's shared is accessible for people who are blind or have low vision. We will be providing visual descriptions of ourselves and any images shown. Feel free to participate in whichever way that makes you comfortable. This might be your lunchtime, so please enjoy your meal during the session. I am still working on my morning coffee. And if you have a question or comment, or you'd like to participate in the conversation, you can do so during or using the chat feature, which is also available through the toolbox. If you're here, then we would love for you to participate in the conversation. Keep yourselves mute for now. You can unmute yourself and chime in when you like. We'll be taking questions throughout, and after the panel, we'll be doing kind of a Q&A. So if you'd like to participate in that, you can raise your hand through the emoji, which is accessible from the toolbox by clicking the word reactions. And I just hope you engage however you like to wish, or however you wish to do it today. And let's start out by using the chat feature. Let us know who you are, where you're coming from, which community, organization, and maybe let us know what brought you here today. It looks like we have an incredibly geographically diverse audience today, and so we're so glad you're here. All right. Okay, so like I said, I'm Erica Wilhite. I'm the Arts Learning and Communities Director and the Accessibility Coordinator at Oklahoma Arts Council. I am a middle-aged white woman with red wavy chin-linked hair and bangs. I am wearing a blue shirt dress buttoned up with a collar, and I'm wearing glasses. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session on the Arts Toolkit presented by the National Endowment for the Arts. And we are joined here by Beth Bienvenu, the Accessibility Director at the Office of Accessibility for the NEA. Also, Catherine Hayward, the Accessibility Specialist at the Office of Accessibility. And she will be behind the scenes and be sharing resources during the presentation. If you are not already on mute, if you could use that mute feature to mute yourselves, just to keep, thank you. And also here, we have a panel of Oklahoma artists. We'll get to know them after Beth's presentation, but we're joined by Amy Sanders DeMello, who is a Colombian American artist and educator living and working in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Delaney Horton, who is a theater artist and an Oklahoma native, and Chris, who is a fantasy and science fiction author and a video game developer. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Beth Bienvenu.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Erica and her team, for inviting me and also Catherine to participate in this event. We're very excited to be here. We did some presentations in the fall on our issues around accessibility and artists with disabilities, and we're excited to be back to talk about opportunities for artists with disabilities and how organizations can best support them. So I am a middle-aged white woman with shoulder-length brown hair wearing a black and white shirt. I have a logo in the background for the National Endowment for the Arts that is just our name with arts.gov, which is our web address. And otherwise the background is black. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started with my presentation. And this always takes a few seconds. All right, that should be working. It also means I won't be able to see you guys, but I'll let others monitor the chat, and I can take questions afterward or after everybody has spoken. So this is such a wonderful opportunity to share the work of incredibly talented artists and people with disabilities. Actually, I'm going to go back up one. So we know that people are creating amazing work in all types of art forms, from music to dance, visual arts and writing and theater. And the disability experience brings with it a unique perspective and set of stories that need to be told and shared through artistic creation. And at the NEA, we are dedicated to supporting this work and helping to create an environment in which disabled artists are supported and allowed to thrive. So for those who aren't familiar with the NEA, we're an independent federal agency that's the largest funder of the arts and communities nationwide, and a catalyst of public and private support for the arts. The Office of Accessibility, which both Catherine and I represent, provides resources to help make the arts accessible for people with disabilities, veterans, older adults, and those living in institutional settings. We provide technical assistance and training to applicants, grantees, and artists with disabilities, as well as NEA staff. We do a lot of work to train and educate our colleagues so that they can do a better job of serving the field and understanding accessibility requirements and the amazing work of disabled artists. And we also work closely with the state arts agencies and regional arts organizations, such as the Oklahoma Council of the Arts, and who are doing incredible work in every state to help ensure that the arts are accessible and artists with disabilities are supported. And I want to say that we are rare in the federal government. I've checked around, and not every federal agency has an office that's specifically geared toward ensuring that their grantees are accessible, or that their work is accessible. So we're very proud of the work that we do, but we know there's more to do. And again, we do support initiatives that support artists with disabilities. So I'd like to talk a bit first about what some of the barriers are that are found by artists trying to work in the arts. The artists here today, of course, will talk about their own experiences, but we've worked for the past number of decades in this arena, talking to artists, holding convenings and online dialogues. And so these are just some of the things that we've learned about what the barriers are. And of course, we'll talk also about ways to overcome those barriers. So of course, as we all know, physical accessibility, the accessibility is an issue, whether it's the physical accessibility or the program access, and as well as attitudinal barriers. And these are things that advocates and artists and others have worked on for a long time and will continue to work on. Limits to the access to arts education and training, whether that's because of accessibility or attitudes or other barriers that emerge. So we're trying to combat that. Limited funding opportunities. The arts and disability both face limited funds. And so, who are the funders that are supporting this work? We're always trying to determine that. And then isolation among artists is often cited as an issue, but what's exciting is the virtual opportunities that have emerged over the last several years. We're seeing more and more networks and virtual convenings happening that are bringing artists together, but it still continues to be a barrier. And one of the key ones that may be brought up today is difficulty maintaining crucial public benefits and career supports, such as Social Security, disability insurance, or Medicaid, et cetera. Artists are 3.5 or 3.6 times as likely as other workers to be self-employed, and which is 34% of all artists are self-employed. And that what we find is that if an artist who is receiving public benefits receives, that are crucial for just living and receiving healthcare, if you receive a grant or a commission, a fellowship, or even a gig, might interrupt those benefits. And that often pushes people out of working in the arts. So we're really looking at tools and ways to work with this system. On the arts organization side, we're finding that the cost of accommodations can be a challenge because a lot of arts organizations have small budgets. Difficulty finding funding for capital improvements, to build ramps, to make their buildings accessible, just a lack of awareness. And then concerns from artists. They're finding that some artists have concerns about asking for accommodations, especially early in their careers. We find this in Hollywood. We find this in theater, you know, in the for-profit sector often, that they worry about being blacklisted or whatever from the work because they, you know, they worry about that they'll be seen as difficult. But we are trying to work within the field to remind folks that accommodations are helpful for everyone and that people should be ready to provide them. So what can we do to ensure that artists can be productive and successful? And I just want to say that this is only scratching the surface, just a few examples, but things to keep in mind. So of course, physical accessibility, we all, you know, we've done so much work over the years to support accessibility for the audiences and visitors to museums and performing arts, but the backstage is just as important. Being able to get on the stage, being able to access dressing rooms and bathrooms, classrooms and studios, stages and the sets, and the paths of travel throughout facilities are really, you know, need to be accessible. Providing American Sign Language or captions, not just for audiences, but for the artistic process, for rehearsals and filming and virtual events, and within classrooms and art studios. Having adaptive equipment and tools for artists, as well as assistive technology, and providing Braille, large print, or electronic plain text scripts or other written materials. Being flexible and open to what artists might need. Having flexibility with time and scheduling. You know, rehearsal schedules and exhibition schedules can be very tight. So looking at how you can be more flexible. Allowing enough breaks, because this is really important, both physically, mentally, and also cognitively for people who might need a break to take care of health concerns, to rest their bodies and their minds, and also allowing for unscheduled breaks if it's possible. You know, when you think of a dance company or a theater company or a film set, it's often very rushed, and that can push people out because they feel that they can't participate. So having that kind of flexibility, we've seen this as an option in theater, in Broadway theater productions. The recent production of How to Dance in Ohio, which was on Broadway, which featured 7 autistic actors and other crew members. They allowed for unscheduled breaks during the rehearsal process, and just a lot, you know, having an open mind about what people might need. And that can include quiet spaces that people can go. So being flexible, open, and transparent throughout the process is crucial. We're also seeing a rise in the use of access consultants. These are people who have experience. It's often people with disabilities who can advise and consult on the artistic process and serve as a representative for the artists. This helps allow artists to focus on their work and not have to spend additional labor and time communicating their access needs. You know, we see consultants in the film production process on, you know, on everything from, you know, being accurate for the military and other types of things. They have intimacy coordinators, but having an access consultant can help provide that protection in many different art forms and settings. And they can also offer new insights into casting and the creative process and audience development. So it's crucial for arts organizations to build the cost of access and accommodations into project budgets and build it into your grant application budgets, whether it's to the Oklahoma Arts Council or to the NEA or others. Make sure you account for that. Research how much it will cost and who the vendors might be, build that in, and then also consider if you're bringing artists in, flying them in, you know, paying for travel, they might have additional travel costs for equipment, for a personal assistance and things like that. So just make sure that you're thinking about those things. And why is this important? It is important because people with disabilities are an untapped talent pool. That's a phrase that's used in the general disability employment sector as untapped talent, but in the arts field, we use talent in a different way, but it's talent nonetheless that's might be untapped. And then also, it's important to have representation, whether it's in the visual arts, performing arts, on stage, on film, to make sure that people with disabilities are, that there is an accurate portrayal, and that people with disabilities are playing those roles and creating the work that tells the stories. And that ties in with authenticity. And then with representation, also just telling the stories so that everybody can hear what the lives are of people with disabilities, and that young people can see that on the screen. And then it's also important for audience development and retention, that people with disabilities represent a large part of our market, and whether it's people in seats or the money. So making sure that people are represented and included in the work will help to ensure that your audience reflects that and is diverse. So I want to share a quote that is from our toolkit by Alice Shepard, who is a dancer and choreographer. She's was one of the founders of Kinetic Light, a dance company. And she said, when disabled artists and disability artistry are not centered, supported, and welcomed as important contributors to the field misses out on the innovation, creativity, imagination, and artistry that comes from the disability community. Audiences and artists should know our work. As people invested in the arts, we owe it to ourselves and to the future to engage with the work of disabled artists. And I'll describe the photo here. It features Jerron Herman, Laurel Lawson, and Alice Shepard from Kinetic Light, their production of Wired. The photo is by Robbie Sweeney. And it features a dark stage with a blue lighting on the floor, with 3 people suspended in the air. 2 of them are women strapped in wheelchairs who are suspended in this rigging, and one is leaning back with her arms extended. And there's also a dark-skinned man also suspended with them, wearing bronze leggings. So they're all in very metallic clothing. And so their work is incredible. Being able to suspend and fly people around on the stage in wheelchairs and not wheelchairs. So I wanted to make sure we had a photo of them and their work. And this quote just really represents what this toolkit is for. So we keep talking about the toolkit. This is it. It was developed as a partnership between the NEA and Art Beyond Sight. It's on our website at arts.gov/arts careers toolkit. And Catherine will put that in the chat. I'll describe the images in a moment, but this is a product that we developed to target 4 audiences involved in this work, to make the case for employment and to provide resources for artists. I'll describe each of those sections in a moment. But in this photo, we have in the upper left corner, there are 4 photos in a collage. In the upper left corner is dancer Siddiqui Konde, who's from Guinea. He is wearing an orange African costume. He's seated on the floor. And behind him are 2 drummers also wearing African costumes. He is one of the NEA's National Heritage Fellows, and this is a photo from that concert. On the right is, upper right, is a photo from Deaf West Theater, which is based in Los Angeles. There are 8 actors on the stage with dramatic blue lighting and projections in the back. They're doing a production of Oedipus. In the bottom left corner is a photo of the Blind Boys of Alabama. And it's a black and white photo, and there are 5 men, dark-skinned men wearing sharp black suits with white shirts and ties, and they're wearing sunglasses. They're a gospel group who also are National Heritage Fellows winners of the NEA. And on the bottom right, representing our arts education section, is a photo from Dancing Wheels, which is a physically integrated dance company and school in Cleveland, Ohio. And on the right is Mary Verdi Fletcher wearing a teal top and red hair in a wheelchair, and she's teaching two women. One is in a chair and one is kneeling beside her in a dance studio with mirrors. So I'll briefly describe the four sections. The first section is resources for artists, cultural workers, and youth with disabilities. It's the largest section. We wanted to cover as much information as possible. There's just a number of links and resources and descriptions of how to plan and prepare for a career in the arts, how to navigate job accommodations, disability benefits, and disability rights, how to find jobs and other opportunities in the arts, and how to market and promote your work. The resources that we provide are drawn from other federal agencies, including the Department of Labor and Social Security Administration, and just a vast amount of information that will be helpful for people seeking careers in the arts. We also want to work on what we call the supply or the demand side. That was the supply side. This is the demand side if you're looking at it economically. So arts employers, how to make the case that people with disabilities have incredible value to bring to their work. So we talk about the importance and benefits of disability equity in the arts, how to make your arts organization and programs accessible, proactive steps to recruit and support disabled artists and other employees, the job accommodations that they may need, and other responsibilities for arts employers. So we really dig into the disability employment content and information that would be helpful to recruit and accommodate people within your organization. So this isn't just artists, but the other workers that you might be hiring. We have resources for arts educators, such as how arts educators and institutions can empower disabled students to explore arts careers, the key arts learning standards and instruction methods for working with disabled students, accommodations and tools for students, and example programs that encourage instructions and curricula that promote inclusion and equity. We don't have all of the information in the toolkit on how to do it, but we have a lot of links to organizations that are doing this work and provide that information. We also, on the demand side, is resources for arts funders, making the case that they need that public and private funders and philanthropy need to be supporting more of this work. So we provide information on equity and inclusion in grant making, how to make that process more accessible, the practices and policies for disability inclusive grant making, the application process, whether it's the electronic portal or just the other information that's required, and the process making that easier, and different ways that they can support the work of disabled artists. So those are the four main sections of the toolkit. But we also include profiles of disabled artists. We found people across different art forms and across the country. And I'm going to describe each of these images while also mentioning who they are. So on the far left is Naomi Ortiz, who was a writer and visual artist, who's a light-skinned mestiza with dark hair, silver loop earrings, burgundy lipstick, and a black sweater with white stars, who's sitting in their scooter surrounded by golden creosote bushes. Next is Duran Herman, who was featured in the Kinetic Light photo. He's a dancer, writer, and speaker, a Black man in his 30s with short blonde hair, dark brown eyes, and a full beard. He's in an ornate room wearing a green tank top and tights while leaning on the back of a chair. The next photo is a visual artist, Gordon Sasaki. This is a full body photo of him. He's a middle-aged Asian male with dark hair. His hands are clasped on his lap, seated in a manual wheelchair, wearing a dark shirt and gray pants. And he's sitting in front of a gallery wall featuring two of his paintings and a sculpture. And then finally is Christine Bruno, who's an actor, teaching artist, and disability equity consultant. She's a petite white woman with short dark brown hair and brown eyes, wearing a black V-neck dress with short sleeves and small black square earrings. So we'll be looking to, we have about 20 artists profiled, and we're looking to be adding more as we go on. You know, we've published this toolkit. We want to have more dialogue around this, and we recognize that there's more work that needs to be done. The disability and arts communities must come together to ensure that disabled artists are not excluded from training and funding opportunities. Arts employers and funding need to see talented disabled artists as worth hiring, casting, presenting, and funding, and create policies that support their inclusion. Arts educators must help to build the pipeline of talented disabled artists through equity and inclusion in their programs. Vocational rehabilitation staff and school counselors have an opportunity to help disabled artists shape their career goals to maximize potential in the arts. And what else the field can do to help. So develop and support arts programs that provide employment and education outcomes for disabled artists. Encourage funders to support disabled artists and the arts programs that serve them. Again, work with voc rehab and career counselors to promote career opportunities and training. Ensure that the accessibility of your arts programming, and including in schools, so people with disabilities can gain exposure to go to arts events when they're young, so they have that kind of exposure. And please share the toolkit. Share it with your colleagues, share it in the disability community. If you work with a university, make sure their career offices have access to it, and their arts departments, and share it with funders in your community so that they're aware of this information. arts.gov/arts careers toolkit. And I want to share one very important resource, especially for artists and arts employers, the Job Accommodation Network, which is a Department of Labor funded project that provides resources for individuals on how to request and negotiate accommodations with an employer, their rights and information on disclosure and self-employment, and then resources for employers. So those of you that are arts organizations will find this very useful. Guidance on workplace accommodation solutions, the process, and requirements under the ADA. And that's askjan.org. So very easy web address. So we're happy to talk to you, either Catherine and I. You can reach us at accessibility@arts.gov. The slide has the URL for the toolkit again, and our logo, and those 4 images from the collage. But we're happy to answer questions. I'm assuming we're going to wait till the end, but I will stop sharing and turn it back over to Erica.
This is Erica. Thank you so much, Beth. Thank you for sharing this resource. Also, thank you for all of the support. The NEA has been incredibly supportive to arts organizations across the country, ours especially. Catherine and she have been an invaluable resource to us. So thank you for that. Okay, so now we'll transition to our artist panel. I'm wondering, Scott, who's helping me behind the scenes, if we wait to spotlight the artists together after we share the images, perhaps. In that, we'll start with, I'll introduce Amy Sanders DeMello again. So go ahead, and if you wouldn't mind bringing up her piece. Okay, all right, so Amy is, as I said before, a Colombian American artist and educator living and working in Tulsa. She's won several awards and grants, and she exhibits her work nationally. We are showing an image of a pair of small porcelain cups with layers of green glaze. Each cup features handwritten and spaced out Braille letters, which say, "Make space for kindness." We can go ahead and stop sharing now, Scott. And if we could hear from Amy, will you introduce yourself? Tell us more about your practice and how did you get to this point in your career?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Amy Sanders DeMello. I am a Latina mixed race female in her early 30s. I have long brown hair. I'm wearing a navy button-up shirt. I also wear hearing aids, and today I'm wearing my glasses, which I normally don't like to wear. So I am a full-time artist based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I predominantly work in ceramics, and a little bit of my practice is also based in social practice. And my studio is at Red Heat Ceramics. It's an artist-run community clay studio where we offer memberships and classes for adults. I studied filmmaking and sculpture in undergrad, actually. but I started taking ceramics on the side as a way of exploring an art form that wasn't being graded for classes, and I completely fell in love with it, and I began selling my work. So when I graduated, I continued to make ceramic work, sell ceramic work on top of having multiple jobs. And then I think in about 2017, 2018, I took 2 years off from ceramics and teaching entirely to take a job as a video producer for a video production company. And it was a really hard and wonderful experience, but I definitely missed creating my own work and telling my own stories. So I went back to ceramics actually right before the pandemic started. And so during the pandemic and then right after the pandemic, Red Heat Ceramics was being developed and opened, right at a time when I was ready for a space that was accessible to me and close to where I lived. And I feel really fortunate to have that in my community, because that's not something that's super common. Ceramics is a very expensive medium to work in. And yeah, I really love what I do. I've been doing it full time, so I try to do a variety of things, whether that's doing lectures and shows and marketplaces, teaching a little bit. My practice definitely has several pathways fused together.
This is Erica. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hand it over to introduce Delaney Horton, who is a theater artist and Oklahoma native. She's worked on many projects ranging from musicals, podcasts, devised new works, and more. She's about to graduate next week from Oklahoma City University with her BA in theater and 2 minors. We're going to show a short clip of a video of Delaney's performance. I'm going to describe the video will be showing Delaney, who is a petite young white woman with long, fiery red straight hair. And in this clip, she's wearing a bright blue sundress with large red flower patterns. So Scott, if we could share that now.
I stick with real things, usually facts and figures. When information's in its place, I minimize the guessing game. Guess what? I don't like guessing games or when I feel things before I know the feeling. How am I supposed to operate if I'm just tossed around by fate? Like on an unexpected date with a stranger who might talk too fast or ask me questions about myself before I've decided that.
Wonderful. And I'm actually going to share the link. This is Erica, link in the chat. If you can access Facebook, you can see the whole video. It's an amazing performance. So yeah, Delaney, I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a little bit more about your arts practice and what brought you here.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Delaney Horton. I am a white presenting woman with, right now, shoulder length, fiery red hair, as always. I have big, round black glasses, as well as wearing a black and gray tank top with little colorful beads on the straps. A little bit about kind of my journey with theater is I have been acting, singing, the whole theater performance thing since I was pretty young. I started out with playing guitar and singing in talent shows whenever I was young, to eventually ending up in a major and career in theater with minors in directing as well as digital film and media. I have done a little bit of everything within the theater realm. I started out with doing musicals whenever I was a bit younger, like in high school and such. And throughout my college career, I have discovered so many different avenues of doing plays. I am currently a children's theater teacher down at Oklahoma Children's Theater, which I know Sonia is here. Hello, Sonia. I love to teach kids. I've been doing that since I was in high school as well. I've been a camp counselor. I've worked with music direction as well as acting, teaching, anything along those lines. What else have I done? I also, early on in my career, did the Kristen Chenoweth Broadway boot camp for 2 years, where I got to work with Broadway professionals on my theater career. And also that's where that video was from. And I'm hoping to eventually pursue a career in New York City. I'm moving there this August. So I am going to be auditioning and trying to find a job there. But I'm hoping to continue to be the representation little me wanted whenever I was younger. So that's a little bit about me. I mean, I do a little bit of everything. Right now, I have a podcast out called Z&D's Place. It's about me and my roommate and kind of our struggles throughout college of being outcasts and kind of our experience within the arts and not feeling like we totally fit in. So that's a little bit about that. That's kind of my journey so far.
Thank you, Delaney. I would love to hear that podcast, by the way. Okay, so next I'm going to introduce Chris here. Chris Borden. I don't have a visual for Chris's work, but that's because he is an author. He's a fantasy and science fiction author and a video game developer. His current video game project incorporates both of these practices. Chris has a degree in electrical engineering and computer science and is currently residing in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Chris, will you introduce yourself and tell us more about your arts practice and how you got to this point in your career?
Hi, I'm Chris Borden. I am a 35-year-old white dude with a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, short hair, headphones, and glasses on, but a dark purple shirt on. And the background is my server rack, and in the foreground is a microphone on an arm. I am perpetually finishing the race and participating in the race sideways. I early life was told I'd not ever be able to socialize and interact, and as you can hear, that is completely not come true. And my artistic career started, turned from a hobby to a professional career around 2018. I was pursuing my graduate degree in computer engineering, got a tick bite, and my hobby with friends became my main thrust. My hobby writing started in 4th grade after getting a reply from my favorite author, saying that I should write a sequel to a standalone book. And my little 4th grader self started writing, and I haven't stopped. God, what was the second part of the question? How did I get here? And about my practice. So I am at the outset of getting serious about this. I'm trying to work with SSI and disability to get paperwork through, but I faced major obstacles starting a degree in the arts from the position I'm at because of the major illness I've had that requires me to keep access to benefits while I'm trying to get started as an author, which has terrible initial income, and as a video game developer, which has a lot in front loaded, and then you get paid, right? So I've faced all sorts of struggles with that, and we'll be talking about that throughout the presentation.
This is Erica. Thank you so much, Chris. Okay, Scott, let's try spotlighting the three of them. And we're going to I've got some questions prepared. And please, in the audience, share your questions or use the hand raising feature, or just come off mute and let us know what you'd like to know. But I would like to start out with, in whatever order you want to go through, but if you could tell us a little bit more about your disability and how it has influenced your work.
Yeah, I can start. So I don't present as someone with disabilities. Most people, when they meet me, assume that I navigate through the world just fine. But I do have significant hearing loss, so I depend a lot on lip reading. And then I'm actually also losing my vision very slowly over time. So I don't have my peripheral vision anymore, and the window of what I see is quite small now. So I can see what's in front of me quite well, but navigating through a space or walking through spaces, I have to be a little bit careful. So the significant vision loss started happening in my early 20s. And at the time, I wanted to be a filmmaker. And so I was wrestling a lot with the longevity of that. And then I was also very much in love with ceramics, and I also liked writing. So when I stopped driving, that was kind of the biggest change in my independence and in my lifestyle. And so I turned to writing Braille messages on my ceramic work about the feelings of my changing body and losing, access to something that I had really loved, being able to get in my car and just go visit my friends or go on a hike, things like that. So it started there, and that was 9 years ago, and it's really evolved to be a way of meditating for me and hopefully others, but just a way of storytelling that hopefully brings people together and allows space for people to grieve and to heal and to have conversations about hard things. The reality is that, our bodies are always changing, our minds are always changing. And I think that most people, not to frighten people, but a lot of people will experience a disability of some form in their lifetime. So I'm hoping that with my work that I can continue to kind of elevate the experience of people who are often overlooked and forgotten and even silenced. And the Braille on the ceramic is kind of a very obvious way of saying, hey, we belong here. Disability belongs in museums and galleries and spaces that are typically reserved for, beautiful work that people really admire and, and love. So
Oh, little kitten.
I'm reminded of Bradley Mays, who is working with Oklahoma Developmental Disabilities Council during the Partners in Policymaking advocacy training I went through that got me in touch with my representatives and stuff, which, by the way, is a nationwide international program. Lots of states have their own programs, and you should be looking at getting into it to advocate for people with disabilities, particularly as policymakers. Um, his saying is that we are all only temporarily abled. We will all face disability in our lifetimes. We're all going to get old, hopefully. And we're all going to be walking with canes, walkers, and wheelchairs, so on and so forth. So your body is only temporarily abled. So it isn't just people with disabilities as an other group you're serving when you're making things accessible. It's also yourself if you don't consider yourself as a person with a disability, and other people that you would consider as not having disability.
Thanks for those thoughts. That's great and very helpful, Chris.
So,
Anyone else want to respond to how your disability has influenced your arts practice?
sure.
Oh,
I'll rock, paper, scissors.
no, you go for it. I'll give up my throne.
Okay. So every aspect of my life is like if I was just going to give a status report right now, my lungs have kind of impinged on my gut just a little bit. So I'm having a little bit of trouble breathing, but this is normal for me with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, where all of my joints have loose ligaments. Every part of my body that has collagen is a little bit looser than it should be. So like I wear these finger splints that keep my fingers from subluxing here, but they'll often pop forward here and I'll just have to wedge it back in. It hurts like heck, but the alternative is to hide and it's going to happen anyway. I have all sorts of assistive technology on my desk, gyroscopic weight that will rattle around and I have to hold it steady to strengthen fingers. And then I have input devices part of the dust, like my 3D mouse that lets me navigate virtual environments, kind of like a quadcopter, and stylus input on my monitor. And surrounding me are all sorts of exercise equipment that I access throughout the day when I'm working. I work in a 45-minute sprint, and then I have 15 minutes of other tasks that are usually exercises and movements to get my body back in line. And to make that bearable rather than infuriating, I get creative with it. I had my physical therapist walk me through how to swing a 6-foot-long greatsword, as an example, that I go out and I drill with multiple times a day. And I've just started fire dancing with the dragon staff as another method of building core stability that isn't laying on my back with a weight, doing isolated exercises. So I have a major belief that the accommodations that I need to be able to work can be fun and they can be cool and they can lead to increased social capital, which is a major area of disability for me because of the combination medical disability and autism spectrum disorder. So finding ways to add methods of networking to the accommodations, making them to where it isn't obviously something that is because a person has disability are important. I'm reminded of the best accommodation I had in math class was being able to bring a computer because I could type massive walls of differential equations in my engineering classes as fast as they were spoken. Whereas previously, before I had a computer in class, I had to have a scribe provided by the school, paid money. So providing the means to self-accommodate have really accelerated my workflow, and finding ways to make the accommodations cool have really made it a lot easier to stick with them because like I can tell you that hardly anyone, but maybe someone who is uh, very, very interesting wants to lay on their back with a weight running through 45 minutes of isolated medical physical therapy exercises, 3 times a week. So, yeah.
Thanks, Claire.
I'll go ahead and share a little bit about me. So I have a condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, or better known as brittle bone disease. The best way I can explain it is that all of my bones are basically glass. They're extremely fragile. A fall, a hit, if I twist wrong, if I step wrong, I could break anything at any time. This has also caused my short stature. I am 4 foot tall, and I also walk with a limp. And recently I have, at least coming to college, I have realized my chronic pain is getting much worse. And I've kind of been trying to learn how to navigate that and figure out how, I don't know, how I fit into the world with a disability. I'm still kind of on that journey. My disability influences my work in quite a lot of ways. I mean, I always have issues with getting into theaters. Like I remembered in the NEA presentation backstage, everything like that is always extremely hard for me because everything is in an old building and there's always stairs and cracks in the floor and carpet that slightly ruffles up, which are all issues for me as if I trip, if I step wrong again, I could break something. And so theater spaces are often a bit of an issue for me. But with that, I also have some like good things that come with my disability. It has inspired me to start writing my own work and wanting to create a story that is similar to my own. Because I've always been told, if you don't see the work that you want to be represented in, then you should create it yourself. So that's kind of my journey right now. I am currently also learning to make music. And so I'm wanting to eventually release a couple albums that kind of share my story as a disabled woman. But besides that, I think my disability also makes me a better performer in a way. I feel that I have much more empathy for everyone, and I'm able to understand where people are coming from because everyone comes from different types of abilities, places, socioeconomic areas, you know. And so that has kind of fueled my love also for social change. And I don't know, I just want to be a disability advocate and be empathetic to everyone.
Thank you. This is Erica. Okay, so Chris touched upon accommodations, and I wondered if we could all respond to the idea of needing accommodations in your work. So, what accommodations or other practices have helped you succeed? For example, we, as a theater artist, it has the production team provided you something that helped you and supported you in auditioning or in rehearsing. So yeah, if the three of you could just respond to the idea of accommodations in your practice and supporting it.
I'll go ahead and just bounce off again. Some accommodations in theater that I have had, I think the biggest one in general is that when directors are not afraid to pull me aside to have a conversation, I prefer this happening during the audition because often I've noticed theater companies are afraid to work with me as they aren't sure of what to do with me and what my limits are and what boundaries I do have. And they often just assume that because I might have those things, they're not going to put me in a show or they're not going to even bother like touching me in any way. So I often love whenever directors, producers pull me aside during an audition and be like, what do you need if we hypothetically do cast you in this production? Like, not promising me anything, but just being like, for future education purposes, what can I do to help you? And I often say that I just want them to have a good attitude towards me and also not to assume my boundaries, as often people are immediately like, okay, she has glass bones. Nope, I'm not going to put her in this dance number. Nope, I'm not going to include her in this. So I think just having that conversation and being open-minded and understanding that we all are coming from different places and that I would rather communicate with a director or whoever it is my boundaries instead of them assuming them, that would be great. Other accommodations that I have really loved is no stairs. I really am thankful whenever theater companies are able to provide a dressing room that is on the same level as the stage, or there isn't stairs to get up onto the stage, or there's no jumping off blocks and stuff like that. You know, like it's just basic physical accommodations that I think are pretty easy to follow. What else do I like for accommodations? I think those are mainly the main ones. I just have lots of mobility things, and it totally depends on the theater company that I'm working with. But I just say to always be open-minded and don't be afraid of a conversation.
Stairs are the absolute worst. I used to have a service dog for at the time panic disorder, but we've learned it's autonomic misregulation from the collagen disorder, and used to try to take her up and down stairs, and she slipped one day and didn't fall, but went down catching herself on each stair and hurt her neck and was down for several months. So I would say that getting around stairs is probably just universally a good thing.
I also don't like stairs. I think it probably just depends on lighting for me predominantly, but yeah, I'm having a memory of being at an art show in undergrad with several professors and grad students, and when I had exited the building, I did not realize that there were stairs because we came out a different way, and I fell. I think a grad student caught me, and the professors joked that I must have been drunk, which, maybe I had a drink or two, but that was definitely not the case. So for accommodation, lighting is a big aspect for me that kind of determines whether or not I'm willing to enter a building. You know, I do have a cane that I just started learning to use and getting training on that. And it's kind of complicated for me because I can still see, I'm still trying to figure out how helpful the cane is and what situation to use it in. But I do know that because it's a visual indicator that I cannot see well, that other people respond to that with kindness. Whereas if I don't have that visual indicator, people make assumptions about, you know, whether I'm sober or just dumb or awkward and clumsy. So yeah, in previous work environments, honestly, I have met some of the kindest people. Usually they're my coworkers who go above and beyond to help accommodate me and kind of are the ones that take the time to learn and understand what I need. It's not as often that I'm getting that from higher up unless there is a moment when someone asks what my accessibility needs are. And I will say that was more in the non-arts industry. And now, whenever I'm applying for opportunities or getting opportunities, that is one of the first things that people are asking me what my accessibility needs are, which I greatly, greatly appreciate. I did a workshop at a craft school in Tennessee recently, and the person that was facilitating it actually went to the dorms and took a video to show me what the space looked like and kind of asked me, like, is this lighting okay for you? Will this work for you? And it just brought me so much comfort and relief because it had been a while since I had gone to a completely new space by myself. A lot of times now I go places with a friend or my partner who helps me a lot with navigating new spaces and dark spaces. So I also just really love when people ask how they can accommodate and are open to the suggestions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those responses. I'm going to ask a final question before we open it up to the audience. And we do have the session scheduled for an hour and a half, and it's almost noon Central Time. So if you have to jump off, I will be sending you a recording of this, but please stay if you can. And if you want to drop your questions in the chat or chime in, that'd be great. But just one last question from me to the group. What advice would you give to a young artist who has a disability and are, interested in pursuing a career?
My advice is to be loud and proud. I think there is no shame in having a disability at all. And I think specifically in the performing arts that people with disabilities are needed in the community, especially right now. So I don't know. I just think you shouldn't be ashamed of who you are. Flaunt it and, do your thing.
I would say a couple of things. First is that disability is really a factor of the environment, not an issue with you. In the right environment with the right accommodations, you are not a person with a disability, you're just a person who's doing the thing. The second thing I would do is caution young artists who are starting out not to take the hardest path they can, not to go for the path of most resistance. I tore myself up double majoring at TU in computer science and electrical engineering, kept an honors GPA at a school with massive grade deflation with like at least a 33% attrition rate from freshman to senior year in both degrees. And it resulted in massive impact to my quality of life. And retrospectively, I could see that taking the path of most resistance looked like it led to the biggest reward, but that isn't quite true. look for the path of most fulfillment as you're making decisions.
I want to bounce off of that because this also just reminded me to never think of yourself as a burden whenever you're going into a new career. If you're jumping into, like I am, jumping into a new, completely different state and community, just not to feel like a burden and that everyone has needs, despite if they're able-bodied or not, and just not be afraid to tell people what you need.
Yeah, that's all really great. Even advice for someone like me at my point in my career. I think that my advice for younger individuals with disabilities is that it's so important to build a support system. And I think that can look different for everyone. For me, you know, my family is a big part of that. My boyfriend is a big part of that, and my community studio, but also with the internet and social media, I've started meeting other artists who also have retinitis pigmentosa, which is the degenerative eye disease that I have, or Usher syndrome, which is the syndrome that affects both my eyes and ears. And that's been really amazing just to meet other people going through the exact same thing that I'm going through. That feels really uplifting in a way. I definitely feel less alone, and I've definitely reached out to them for just a person to talk to and kind of get advice from them, or ask about their experiences. And another suggestion is, you know, if there is someone in your community, in your proximity, that you really admire what they're doing, don't be afraid to ask for mentorship. Mentorship has really, really played a big role in my career. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone with a disability or the same disability as you, but just having someone that is willing to kind of guide you over your career and encourage you is really amazing. And I wouldn't be where I am without mentors.
I'd like to bounce off that. Flashback to partners, and I'm going to get the statistic inexact, but it's about the right ratio. Coming from, I believe, Al Condalusi, who is a fantastic civil rights activist. The average person with a disability has something like in the high 20s, low 30s number of social connections that they have social obligations to. A person without disability has something like either 120 or 150. Have a dyslexic reversal in my head on either a 2 or a 5. So we're looking at massive gap in social capital, and networking really is virtual and face-to-face is really, really important for people with disabilities. And I'd say that actually, if you're facilitating a career, trying to accommodate someone with disability, that facilitating the social connectivity isn't a bad thing.
Thank you. Okay, well, we do have some more time. I'm going to unspotlight everyone, if I can, yep, remove spotlight. And I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Feel free to chime in with or without your camera on, or put it in the chat. And oh, it's just Amy up there. Hold on. Let me figure how to do. How do I get? Oh, if maybe someone can help me backstage get a thank you. And also these questions can of course include Beth's perspective and expertise regarding the toolkit. So I'll just open it up. Any questions? Okay, well, I did receive some questions in your registration form. And so I thought maybe we could just pull, one or two out of that because I think they're pretty relevant. And I will leave this open to all of our presenters. So someone was asking, what are the strategies for attracting candidates with disabilities and learning about their experiences with recruitment in interviews and such? What are some strategies for attracting candidates with disabilities?
If you want me to respond, I could chime in. I mentioned the Job Accommodation Network, which is about the accommodations process and, disabilities in the workplace and accommodations. But another project that's sponsored by the Labor Department is the Employer Assistance Recruiting Network. And I'm going to put that link in the chat. It just provides tools for recruitment and other issues around other important tools around recruiting and hiring people with disabilities. But I think the key thing is casting a wide net, reaching out to networks of people with disabilities, reaching out to these artist networks, and just making sure that you are open to look at your perceived biases about who can do the job, because that's one of the biggest concerns. Is you think about it's like, oh well, who's the most likely person for this? And I see Delaney has her hand up, but I want to give a brief anecdote. I have issues with my back and my legs, and I can't be on my feet for long periods. And I had a job early in my career of helping run a conference, and I was on my feet all day and I was in so much pain. And later on, when I was trying to get them to hire somebody, I'm like, okay, someone who's, who has stamina and can do all this. And someone said, doesn't have to be. They might have tools for doing for running around at the conference. If they're a wheelchair user, they might be able to still run around and do the same things. So I had the bias based on my own experience of who could and couldn't do that job. So it's just important to think about that. So I'll let Delaney respond.
Yeah, bouncing off of what Beth said, I think what works best for me as a artist starting out in the career, in like an actual career, is doing your research and reaching out directly. At least for me, I think I've been reached out to multiple times on Actors Access because I have put in my profile that I am a disabled person. So if you are reaching out for specifically like actors to be in your shows, or if you're looking for an administrator or something like that, I think just doing your research and looking at those communities and reaching out directly is a great way to do it.
I'd like to bounce off of what Beth said as well. Is my mic on?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure, because I'm not seeing myself light up green. My business partner is someone with aphantasia, and she is my visual artist. So, assuming that someone who can't visualize things in their head can't be a visual artist would have sunk that partnership, right? So, don't assume based on diagnostic terminology and stuff that someone can or can't do a job. Let them self-determine.
Yeah, along with that, I think that offering options is really nice. So, if you were trying to set up an interview, it could be nice to offer a virtual option in the event that someone, might struggle with just coming out for a 30-minute meetup that leads to nothing. That's something that I've definitely dealt with in the past. And again, I mean, anytime that I see in a form, do you have any accessibility needs? That is exciting to see because it just shows at least someone is willing to have that conversation. And not that I don't advocate for myself, but it makes it a little bit easier.
Thank you for those responses. There is a question in the chat. This is Erica. There's a question in the chat regarding funding. So are there state or federal grants tax credits or other forms of funding that can help building owners renovate for accessibility, and where do you find these resources? And Beth was sharing a link. Check out the community development block grants, which may be applicable in your community. She included a link. Also, she mentions in the chat there might be tax credits in your community for renovations. So check with your state and local government. I will say that while the Arts Council does not fund building improvements or infrastructure, our project grants can be used for accessibility services. So if you are a theater company and you're wanting, to provide ASL or cart services, there's different ways that grant can work for you. So I just wanted to add that. But to the question about grants, do our artists or anyone in the audience, are you aware of anything else that we can be looking at regarding building improvements?
Yes. I'm not sure who exactly they'd connect you to, but I would contact the Developmental Disabilities Council in your state. I know the Oklahoma DDC is particularly awesome. And there was a lot of discussion on building design for people with disabilities in the partners and policymaking session I was in. So I would probably contact through them and ask them to network you in, because they know of some really esoteric funding.
Thanks for that. And thank you, Catherine, for beating me to it. She dropped the link in the chat real fast. Thank you for that. Anna Vittoria is here asking about a question for Amy. She's a fan. And she wants to know if, Amy, do you have any exhibitions in the near future that we can support?
Yeah, I was just responding in the chat. The staff at Red Heat Ceramics actually will be set up at Mayfest next month. So anyone in Tulsa, Oklahoma who's interested in the studio can come by and check out what we do and meet some of the instructors. And then I have some work at a ceramic competition in San Angelo, Texas right now.
Wonderful. To that, I'd like to ask, I know that Delaney is graduating next week, and Chris is working on a novel. Anything we should be on the lookout? Any production in Oklahoma or in New York? We can catch you in Delaney. Chris, what about the video game project? And just if you want to share, kind of toot your own horn about what's coming up.
I mean, next week I am graduating as well as performing in Oklahoma City University's New York Showcase. I'm performing Misty by Errol Garner and a monologue from Dead Man's Cell Phone. And we are going to be traveling to New York the day after graduation, actually, to perform at Alvin Ailey for, I think, over 100 different agents and casting directors.
Would you guys be interested in putting your social media handles in the chat in case you want us to follow you, if you have them?
I would. So on the YouTube restream, I am a bit concerned about that because I am working in LGBT media and video games, which are prone to online harassment. So on the restream, would you be able to censor my social media handles? Alternatively,
Is that a question for me, Chris?
yeah.
I think it's a technical question of whether you can mute that or
Oh, I see.
or
Okay.
remove it from the restream for the recording. Like, is it something you could read out to us, or is it a long URL? Because if you read it out, then maybe they could cut the video
Okay,
or share it after we turn off the recording.
yeah,
Or maybe, yeah.
I'm going to be still in stealth mode, so you're going to find empty pages, but I'm starting Quillblade Studios, and my work is called the King's Fate Saga. I am featuring an LGBT cast in a way that is more nuanced than is typically portrayed in media. It is written at a young adult level, rated PG-13. So instead of the representations that I've felt miss me and miss my friends, I've gone for something that shows the found family that a lot of people who fit outside of mainstream culture tend to congregate in. And I'm trying to tell stories of resilience. And with the video game, uh, I am hoping to tackle the bystander effect when people see others that are alien to them and feel disempowered to have a positive impact. Um, I can't say exactly how I'm going to do it, but there's one big moment I'm working toward. So I am extremely excited about it to the point of tears because I feel absolutely privileged to be working on this with the artist that I am, with the resources that I have, and the story that I've told. I've got beta readers on the novel. Um, I've had the best feedback I could have ever hoped for from two separate people, that two separate characters they felt like were the main character for the entire story. Um, so um, to say I'm excited and proud of my work is an understatement. This is so cool. And I'm happy to give you links via email. I'm certain Erica will facilitate getting in touch with me if you're interested.
I certainly can. Yeah, Chris will work behind the scenes to get those links out to everyone. Wonderful. Any other questions before we wrap up? I'm checking the chat. I don't see new ones come through. Thank you for sharing your contact information, Delaney, and websites. Yes, and thank you all for joining us today for this webinar. I will be sending the link for the recording, the slides, and other resources that were shared today. So I think I've been keeping track of that chat. I'll link you up in a few days in a follow-up email. And if you're able to, please join us next Wednesday, May the 1st. I'm dropping a registration link in the chat. So this is at 11 a.m. Central Time. We will be hosting an audio descriptions for performing arts experiences webinar that will be learning from audio description solutions and national consultant, and specifically on the performing arts. So for theater, dance, music, also conferences, videos. So if you're able to join us, we'd love to have you back. Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Catherine, behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Chris and Delaney and Amy. It was a very engaging and just a great dialogue. I appreciate you so much. And I'll let everyone see yourself out before I cut the meeting off. Thank you.